Today we're taking our Nitrous Express install to the next level by adding an automatic bottle opener, so stick around. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the garage, and today we are doing the automatic bottle opener from Nitrous Express, so we can open our bottle up while we're in the car on the fly without having to get out and twist the knob. Big shout out as always to our sponsors, Nitrous Express, for this series. Make sure and check out the link in the corner that I'll post to the whole playlist where we go through a complete install of one of the Nitrous Express dry kits. We've added a lot of the accessories that come along with this, and we've got a couple more videos coming out soon that deal with the automatic bottle heater and the pressure sensor, but for today we are focusing on the remote bottle opener. That being said, I've got the instructions printed out here to kind of help us along. One of the big things is if you've got any product in your bottle, they send you a nice cap to go ahead and cap this thing off because we're going to have to open our valve up. So make sure and be safe. I've got the wrong size wrench for that, but I'll be right back and let's go ahead and dive into installing this setup. Okay, now that I got the right wrench, let's go ahead and tighten this thing down because I do have quite a bit of product in here and we don't want to leak, so be careful. This stuff is super cold, as we've talked about in the past, and we got a little bit of a leak. Let's see if we can tighten it down some more. There we go. Okay, we want to go ahead and back this thing all the way out, remove the plastic cap to get to the existing nut underneath here. So use a small screwdriver and try not to hurt myself in the process. There we go, and popped right off there. Now let's grab a 1/2-inch wrench so we can get our valve off, and then we can start putting the equipment on for our automatic bottle opener. Okay, I've got my 1/2 inch here. I'm going to go ahead and pop this thing loose. Take off our valve here, and the nice thing about this, we're going to need that. Nice thing about this setup is it allows you to still open up the bottle manually if you want to after the fact, but first we need to get our collar on. It comes with this black screw that screws in there to clamp this thing down. There's a notch in this collar specifically to clearance your outlet here, so make sure whenever you put this on that you're lining it up to clearance and gives you plenty of room to get your connectors on at the end of the bottle there. Okay, we'll go ahead, line this thing up, make sure everything looks good, tighten her down. There we go. Okay, that collar takes quite a bit of torque. Bear down on her, get her loaded up. Now let's go ahead and put our new valve adapter on here. We'll drop our nut in here, get that thing started. Where'd my socket go? There it is. If it were a snake, it'd bit me. Now, we open this valve all the way out because we want to make sure whenever we mount all this up that we've got the proper clearance. Tighten her down. Now we should be able to run it down. Make sure the valve goes all the way closed without binding up. Okay, so now that we've got our adapter on there, we can go ahead and place our actual opener on here. There is a thumb screw spot in the back. We'll go ahead and line it up. Make sure that our gears mesh properly. There we go. Turn it like so and install our thumb screw into the valve body. Okay, at this point in time, our thumb screw hole's just a little bit off, and so we're going to bump our collar up just a smidge so we can line that up, make sure everything goes together without binding. Verify again that we are in the correct location. I'm having all kinds of Allen wrench issues today. Okay, with our collar raised up a little bit, we've got this thing closed, so we've got plenty of room to actuate our bottle. Let's go ahead, Perfect. Now our thumb screw is going to go in without any issues. And as you can see, we'll run this thing down and secure it to our bottle. Now, the one thing that we need to pay attention to is clearance on this. If need be, we can remove the top half of this and rotate it. It's got 4 spots that you can rotate it to clear the actual motor on here that works the linear actuator that goes into the screw drive. My guess is there's a worm gear in here. But before we do that, let's go ahead and talk about our wiring. I've already gone into the car itself and ran the power wire up to the switch. There's detailed instructions in the guide that shows you which wires go where. But the nice thing about it is Nitrous Express has included a disconnect. I've already done the disconnect on the side of the car. I just need to wire up the one on this side. Now, where this plugs into on the car, pretty close to this area. So I'm going to limit the distance that I need on this one and cut it off about right here. Give myself enough room that I've got plenty to work with, yet still without it being too long and messy. While we're at it, we might as well go ahead and throw some wire loom on this. What do you think? So I got a section of wire loom here. I'm going to go ahead and measure it out and leave myself a little bit of room on the end so I can work with the connector. Oop, don't cut your wire. And let's go ahead and cut that part off, and we'll feed this loom back across what we already have out. And you can see what I'm talking about here. Whenever we get up to our connector here, we will use a little bit of tape to do a clean connection there. I like to use hockey stick tape for my wiring for stuff like this to make a clean looking connection. Looks a lot like the cloth tape that you see in factory installs, but it's a lot cheaper than cloth tape that you get from your auto parts store. So wrap this up nice and tight on this end, and then we'll do the same for the other end. Perfect. Okay, so the thing to keep in mind whenever working with connectors like this is that you need to have the proper tools to crimp them. We want to just get a little bit of wire out there because these connections will actually crimp down on both the wire and the insulation. I've already put the female side on the connector in the car, so we're going to use the male side over here. And I'll put a link down in the description below for this one. I use the iWis, whatever, one of the cheaper ones, but it works good for this setup. And you will line these things up in the die. We're using the bigger die on this one because of the size of the connector, and get it kind of started here so we can then go ahead, throw our wire in, seat it properly, and make sure that we're getting a connection on both the wire and the insulation. Oh, before I forget about it, don't forget to put your insulation or your weather seal boots on here so we can weather seal it out. Not a big ordeal in the trunk because it's not going to be exposed to anything, but if you had a connection like this in the engine bay, it will keep out the elements on your connection. Nice little added feature on there, and good looking out on Nitrous Express's part to give us the proper things. So now that we've got it crimped on there, let's sit our boot down in the big portion of the back shell or the terminal here. I just use my wire stripper to crimp it in place to hold it. We'll go ahead and do the other one now. Okay, now that those are crimped on, before we go ahead and insert them into the back side of our connector here, I'm going to double check to make sure which wire is going into which side on the other connector. That way the switch operates in the correct direction. These kind of actuators go both directions, and so you're literally just changing the polarity that's going on these two wires. If you put positive on this wire, it goes one direction. If you put positive on this wire, it goes the other direction. The toggle switch that comes with the kit is set up that way, so we push the one spot for open, push the other spot for close, and it's pretty straightforward. But the switch itself has a little light on it that's for the open side, and if you get this backwards, that would actually be the close side. So let me double check that, and then we'll go ahead and seat these terminals in the back of our connector. Okay, for my setup, the blue is going to go in slot A. Push it in and it'll seat. You can push these through, then pull back on it to make sure that it's locked in properly. And then we can just clip that to lock it down, and we're good to go with this part of the installation. Let's go ahead and throw the bottle back in the car, plug it in, and we can test it out. As you can see, for our orientation, the default setup's just about perfect. We've got the connector coming off of our heater, our bottle opener right here, allows us to plug it directly in, nice and simple. That way, we can easily just pull the whole thing out and disconnect this outside of the car, mainly because we're going to get very close to our partition here. So on the XLR, this is what allows the top to open and close, but as you can see, we still have plenty of clearance in here. Nothing's touching. We could still put the top down on this thing if we wanted to and have some fun with, you know, some nitrous with the top down also. We're going to go ahead and leave our cap on right now because the bottle should be closed, but we're going to test it out with the cap on before we hook the system back up. So I'm going to jump in the car real quick and let's see if it works. Okay, here we have our switch. Here's our purge button. Let's go ahead and put the car into on. You can see our switch is now lit up. We hit our purge button. There's nothing in the system right now, but this is open. Let's go ahead and give it a shot. We should be able to hear it. There it goes. We're open now. Now we can go closed. And we're closed. Perfect. So let's go back to the system, take the cap off, prime the system up, and then we'll test it out that way. Okay, now that we've got everything hooked back up, I'm going to go back up into the driver's seat there and open this up. We should hear the line fill up. I've got the system purged down so we'll know how well it works. Let's give her a shot. Perfect. And the system is purged off. Man, how awesome is that? Man, it opens this bottle up super quick, just a couple seconds. You know what? This might be the best mod that you can really do. I love this thing. I love the idea of not having to get out here, pop the trunk open, spin the bottle valve open every single time. Now we can rock and roll. Next up though is the bottle heater. And then of course we're going to tie in a pressure sensor to the line so we can see whenever we have good pressure on here. So make sure if you haven't already subscribed, click that link down in the corner. You don't want to miss out on that. Let's do a wrap up. Seriously, how cool is that mod? Like how easy. I mean, it wires up super quick. You basically need power, you need ground. Take those to the switch that comes included with the kit. And then there's some other things that you can do. There's a high mode for the light and then a dim mode. I went ahead and just jumped and wired straight to the dim mode. So the light's always in dim. I'm not worried about during the day, trying to keep that light a little bit brighter. And then same thing, I got the grounds. There's 2 ground posts on the switch. They're shared. So all that switch is doing is switching between polarity on one point and polarity on the other point to go open and close. Rest of it super straightforward. Just put a 10 amp fuse on the system. Doesn't have a lot of amp draw because it has a very high gear ratio in there in order to open and close the bottle. And it does seat the bottle very well. In fact, I took the opener off and really had to bear down on that thing to get it opened back up manually because it had really seated down perfectly. So huge shout out to Nitrous Express as always for sponsoring Project Country Club, this awesome install. As I said, make sure to check out the links down below. There's links to Nitrous Express. I'll put links to the products that we use on Project Country Club, and then make sure and hit up the comments if you have any questions, you have any suggestions, things like that. Always like hearing from you guys. Thank you for your support as always. Thanks for stopping by the garage. Remember, ABT, always be tuning.